Hi, this is Glen at SwitchUp, here today to review Raging Justice. Many thanks to publishers Team 17 for providing us with a review copy. The Switch is starting to build itself an impressive library of beat-em-ups, with arcade classics such as Double Dragon, the Sengoku games and Mutation Nation already gracing the system, as well as recent indie hit Streets of Red. Well, Raging Justice wants to enter the fighting ring and tasks you with rescuing the mayor in a city that has fallen into anarchy and decay. Can it join the aforementioned powerhouses? Let's find out. The graphics in Raging Justice almost have a Claymation look and feel about them. Characters look plasticky and they are all pretty eccentric in terms of their design. The style seems to borrow from the 70s and the 80s and even the 90s, which gives the game a bit of a timeless feel. It feels like a 70s cop show, with a fair few wide collars and flared trousers on show, and some characters that look like they've come straight out of Starsky and Hutch. There are also enough backwards baseball caps, low-hanging jeans and tattoos on show to represent later decades too. You will see the same enemies repeated often, and there are probably only about 8 unique enemies in the game, not including bosses, although it is certainly not the first beat 'em up ever to repeat enemies throughout the game. The aforementioned Claymation look extends to the animation too. The characters move in a way that is very reminiscent of stop motion or motion capture. This can make them look a little sluggish at times. Whilst fighting, things generally look okay, but the walking animations and some of the taunts that the characters perform, such as when they look towards the player and wave their arms, look a little off. Almost as if frames of animation are missing, and this makes things look quite choppy. The boss on level 6 is a particularly good example of this. He has a move where he grabs you and throws you around a bit, and it almost moves in slow motion when he does it. It really does remind me of a monster created by legendary stop motion artist Ray Harryhausen in a movie like, say, Clash of the Titans or Jason and the Argonauts. Or the fighting stances used in early Mortal Kombat games. The backgrounds look good and have a more realistic style. They show the urban decay and deprivation that the game is striving for well. It's a very colourful game despite its gritty theme, and it's nice to see the colour, eccentricity and exuberance of beat 'em ups such as Double Dragon, Streets of Rage and Final Fight displayed in this game, even without the use of sprite-based graphics. The graphical style is unique and won't be to everyone's taste. It's bright and colourful, but the choppy nature of the animation is a little off-putting, and it receives 12 out of 20. You almost know the type of music score you are going to get with Raging Justice before it even kicks in. It's that 80s inspired, high-octane action music that seems to be used a lot these days. Having said that, it's very appropriate for the setting of this game and reminds me of something you would hear in 80s cult movie classic Escape from New York. This blood-pumping music is sometimes replaced with something a little more laid back, as certain stages, for example, take place within a circus tent, and the change in music at these points is quite amusing. And ties in nicely with the theme of being surrounded by absolute madness and carnage. I enjoyed the music in Raging Justice. It's fit for purpose and adds to the atmosphere, and receives 14 out of 20. Raging Justice plays in much the same way that most beat 'em ups over the years have. You move on a 3D plane, walking to the right until you cannot progress any further. At this point you must defeat all enemies in the vicinity before being allowed to move on. The game's biggest innovation is also my biggest gripe, and that is its arrest system. You are able to arrest enemies rather than defeat them, and doing this will mean that they drop some health for you to pick up. It's similar in premise to the recently released Streets of Red's idea of finishing with a fatality, thus ensuring that you get extra gold. The difference was that in Streets of Red you could always achieve this by pressing the correct button when the time came, but in Raging Justice you can only arrest enemies when they are stunned. This would be fine if there was a surefire way of stunning enemies all the time, but that doesn't appear to be the case. Your best bet is by throwing a weapon at them or grappling them to the floor, but even these do not always achieve a stun. It becomes a little more frustrating because of the good cop bad cop system. The theory behind this is that you choose whether to play as a good or a bad cop by way of your actions during your playthrough, and this will grant you points and bonuses bonuses for completing certain challenges. For example, there are enemies in the level that have warrants out on them, and the game challenges you to arrest them rather than defeat them to earn a good cop bonus. You will know them as they flash with a red aura, but without being able to arrest whenever you want, it comes down to whether they happen to become stunned when you come across them. It would have been much better if you could arrest whenever an enemy's health dropped below 20% or something like that. To be honest, anything less random than what they went for. Not all of the level challenges are tied to the arrest system. Others include doing things like completing a level in under a certain amount of time or throwing an enemy's weapon back at them. These are a nice idea and they do add some replayability to the game. Raging Justice has 3 difficulty settings, and even on normal, this is a pretty tough game. There are also 3 playable characters, and they all play quite differently. There is Rick, who is your powerful but less agile character, Nikki, who is a mix of power and agility, and Ashley, who is the weakest but quickest character. Usually I prefer to play as smaller, more nimble characters in games, but I found the game much harder playing as Ashley. Boss battles in particular seem to take absolutely ages with this character, and I ended up using Rick most of the time in the end. It's nice that the characters do feel so different though, and that the changes aren't just aesthetic. There is a 2-player co-op mode available, and the game allows you to have friendly fire turned on or off. This means that you can choose whether you can hurt each other during the 2-player mode. It's a nice nod to beat 'em ups of old to have this feature, as a lot of them had this back in the day, but I am so pleased that they made this optional. This is how modern games should pay homage to old classics. Have it as an additional option and don't force it on newer players. There are also online leaderboards for all of the difficulty levels. Finally, there is a play mode called Brawl, which is basically an endurance mode where you fight waves of enemies one after the other. I really enjoyed this mode and it's a very welcomed addition. Gameplay is classic for the genre, the 2-player mode is great, and online leaderboards are present and correct. The arrest system could have really added something new, but unfortunately it feels a little bit unpolished, and the game receives 15 out of 20 for this section. Players move up and down the 3D plane using either the D-pad or the left stick. You can also hop quickly up or down the screen by double tapping the corresponding direction on the D-pad. This is a useful move for getting out of a tight spot quickly. Double tapping left or right on the D-pad sees you perform a dash attack move. A picks up items and drops them again, and also grabs enemies. Y is your punch button and also enables you to use a weapon should you pick one up. X kicks and also throws a weapon, and B is your jump button. You can use your special move by pressing X and A at the same time, and this will do a good amount of damage but also take some of your health away. This is another staple of the genre and stops players from absolutely spamming this move. Should you wish, you could also access this move by pressing the R button. HD Rumble is used very effectively in this game. Now this is not something I usually comment on because, to be honest with you, I can take it or leave it in games, but the way that you receive feedback from the controller as you jab, followed by something a little more forceful as you hit with a haymaker for example, is very satisfying. It also resists the urge to shake so violently that it would wake the whole household up if you were playing at night, that a lot of games seem to do. The controls are as responsive as they need to be, and the HD Rumble is implemented as well as in any game I've seen so far, and controls receive 16 out of 20. The game costs £9.99 or $13.49. For the money you are paying, you are getting 9 stages and a very decent challenge. The game is tough, even on normal difficulty, but it must be said that easy mode is very easy. So far, stage 8 is as far as I've got on normal mode, whereas I've completed the game on easy without using a continue. It's a little strange that there is such a discrepancy between these 2 difficulty settings, but I guess that's why one's called easy and one isn't. Add in the challenges, 2-player mode, online leaderboards and the aforementioned Brawl mode, and the game certainly offers good value for money, and value scores 17 out of 20. To conclude, Raging Justice pulls inspiration from genre classics and uses this inspiration to mould something that is very enjoyable to play. It is very difficult and will take some mastering, and the difficulty does seem a little unbalanced at times, like I mentioned earlier with that discrepancy between easy and normal mode, but there is always the opportunity to take a friend along for the ride, and the incentive of online leaderboards to keep you trying. The arrest system is a little hit and miss and feels a bit underbaked to be fair, and it could do with some refining should a sequel ever materialise. Having said all that, this game does enough to warrant a purchase, and Raging Justice receives a SwitchUp score of 74%. Thanks everyone for watching. Please leave a like if you like what you saw, and consider subscribing for all things Switch all the time, and as always, happy gaming.